Hello students, I am Dr. Pooja Mehta from Inder Kumar Gujral, Punjab Technical University, Kapurthala, Punjab. Let us now discuss the concept of values in detail. Values are long-lasting and stable beliefs about what is good, what is bad. In order to understand organizational behavior, it is very important to study values. Firstly, because values of an individual strongly influence his attitudes, perceptions, needs, and motives at the workplace. Values are a very powerful force influencing the human behavior. Effective managers have to study the value system underlying behavior of the employees because only then they will be able to understand why people behave in a particular fashion sometimes. Meaning of values. Values can be described as the basic convictions that guide an individual that a particular mode of conduct or final outcome is personally or socially acceptable or not. Once values are internalized, they become standard for guiding the actions or decision making of an individual. Values contain an element of judgment which influences an individual's understanding about what is good or bad, what is desirable or undesirable. Values are inherited as well as learnt through the process of socialization. The work related values such as autonomy, comfort, achievement, and status seem to be inherited. Certain individual values are also learned in the different stages of life as a result of interaction with the relevant persons in our life, like our parents, friends, teachers, and colleagues. Values are comprised of both content and intensity attributes. Content attributes define that a mode of conduct or final outcome is important. Intensity attribute define how much important it is for an individual. The concept of values can be well understood with the help of some important definitions. First definition of values says that value is the concept of the desirable and internalized criteria or standard of evaluation a person possesses. Such concepts and standards are relatively few and determine or guide an individual's evaluation of many objects encountered in the daily life. The second very important definition of value, which is given by Milton Rockich, is values are global beliefs that guide actions and judgments across a variety of situations. Now we will discuss characteristics of values. Values generally contain a tinge of principles of morality. These principles of morality direct an individual about what is right, good, and desirable. Values provide standards of proficiency and integrity. Values are fewer in number than attitudes. Values are most central to the core of a person. Values usually go beyond the specific objects, situations, or persons. Values are relatively permanent and resistant to change. These characteristics of values clearly describe that values generally guide a person's behavior, a person's conduct in the daily life. What we judge as right or wrong is always guided by our value system. When values are ranked in terms of their importance, it results into the value system of the person. Value system of an individual provides a hierarchical framework which indicates the relative importance we assign to different values such as freedom, self-respect, honesty, self-respect, and so on. From this discussion, we can generalize that value system of an individual is very important to guide the behavior of an individual. Value system gives us an idea of what values are more important for a person. Now we will discuss importance of values. Values provide us the basic framework for understanding attitudes and motivation of an individual at the workplace. Value system of an individual influences the perception about whatever is happening around in the environment. Values symbolize the explanation of what is right and what is wrong. Value system influences an individual's decision making and choice of solution to various problems. Values also play social function in an organization. Those values which are derived from the common experiences help in uniting the societies and groups together. Values influence behavior of an individual and therefore they provide the criteria for evaluating the behavior of others. In order to meet the challenge of reconstructing the established work values all over the world, understanding the concept of values become very essential for every manager in the organization. Now we are going to discuss types of values. Under this topic, the first type of classification we are going to discuss is given by Milton Rocket, which is also regarded as Milton Rocket classification of values. He conducted a survey which is popularly known as RVS. This survey is used to classify the values. RVS is comprised of two types of value sets, each containing 18 individual value items. One set is called terminal values and another set is called instrumental values. Terminal values represent the desirable outcomes. These values represent the ultimate goals that a person would strive to achieve in his lifetime. The examples of terminal values are comfortable life, sense of accomplishment, family security, mature love, self respect, wisdom, exciting life, freedom, social recognition, which means to gain respect and appreciation in the society, true friendship, which means having friends around, a word of peace, a word of beauty, equality, which means having equal opportunity, happiness, inner harmony, national security, pleasure, and salvation. Instrumental values. Instrumental values refer to the preferred mode of behaviors or means to achieve desirable ends. These are the medium for attaining terminal values. For example, the instrumental value which can help in achieving the terminal value of true friendship is being responsible. Similarly, the instrumental value independent can help in achieving the terminal value freedom. The examples of instrumental values are ambitious, broad-minded, capable, cheerful, clean, courageous, forgiving, helpful, honest, imaginative, independent, intellectual, logical, loving, obedient, polite, responsible, and self-controlled. After discussing the types of values, namely instrumental values and terminal values, we can conclude that terminal values describe the ends which we want to achieve, and instrumental values describe the means to achieve those ends. The values serve the following functions. Firstly, they influence us to favor one particular situation or ideology over the another, which means that values always guide us what we need to do. Values take us to the particular position on social issues. Values guide us in presenting ourselves to others. Values guide us in judging, evaluating, and praising others. Values help us evaluating ourselves in comparison to others on moral grounds. Values help us in persuading and influencing others to change their beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. Dear students, we are doing classification of values. The another classification of values is given by G.W. Elpert, Vernon, and Lindsay. They classified values into 6 major categories, which we will discuss one by one. The first category of values is theoretical values. These values reflect a person's interest in the discovery of truth through reasoning and systematic thinking. Ideal theoretical man values the discovery of truth. The second category is economic values. These values refer to one's interest in practicality, usefulness, and accumulation of wealth. The ideal economic man values whatever is useful. Next category is aesthetic values. These values reflect one's interest in beauty, art, and creativity. The ideal aesthetic man relish artistic and aesthetic experience in the life. Next category is social values. Social values reflect one's interest in the relationships. The ideal social man gives importance to the sense of belongingness and love. Political values. These values reflect one's interest in obtaining power and influencing others' behavior. The ideal political man gives more importance to the power. Last category of values is religious values. Religious values reflect an individual's interest in unity. The importance of these values varies from person to person. Understanding these values is very important for understanding behavior of the individuals. According to another classification, values can be categorized as organizational values and work values. Organizational values. All organizations have certain core values that are so deeply ingrained that they guide companies' actions and practices to establish organizational culture, which mean that culture of every organization is guided by their organizational value set. Good firms always practice distinct and identifiable set of values that include management's belief about service quality, innovation, importance of human resources, detail of information, openness of communication, and etc. There are four common types of organizational values. The first type is power, elitism, and reward. Second type is effectiveness, efficiency, and economy. Third type is fairness, teamwork, and law and order. Fourth one is defense, competitiveness, and opportunism. Work values. Work values are described as the concept of what is preferable from the given alternative mode of conducts and end states with respect to one's work. In simple words, it can be described as individually held conceptions of what is desirable and what is undesirable with respect to individuals' work activities. Mr. T.V. Rao proposed a framework of work values which describes the best career where individual will give his best. The first work value proposed by Mr. T.V. Rao is creativity and challenge. Creativity and challenge describes the person's scope to do new things. Second is economic value, which describe satisfaction of financial needs. Third is independence. Independence described the freedom and autonomy at work. The next value is service, which describe the desire to serve others. Work conditions. Work condition means conditions which are required to improve individuals' productivity. Status. Status describes designation and prestige. Co-workers. Co-workers describe availability of good colleagues at work. Security. Security means continuity of job. Academic, which describes relationship of work and academics. Effects of values. The effects of values can be understood with the help of a framework provided by Maglino and Revlin in 1998. You can see the framework in the given figure. The figure explains that values influence the behavior of a person or behavioral outcomes of a person in two ways. Firstly, you can see in the figure that the socialization process determine the values of an individual, and individual values influence the behavioral outcomes of the individual directly. These behavioral outcomes are beliefs, attitudes, decisions, performance, turnover, and organizational citizenship behavior. Secondly, individual values in congruence with the values of others, such as leaders, colleagues, or team members, may also influence behavioral outcomes of an individual. But this influence is also dependent on the task and situational variables. For example, in a routine problem, values will not affect the behavior much, but the effect of values on behavior will be higher in case of a non-routine or complex problem. This framework also explains that when employees believe that their individual values are aligned with the organizational values, they tend to be engaged in positive organizational behaviors, express organizational citizenship behavior, organizational commitment, and increase the level of their performance. Now we are going to discuss major sources of values. The first important source of determining values is family. Family is the prime and most important source for obtaining values. Every child learns some values from his family since his childhood and retains those values in his mind throughout his life. The ways the parents nurture, educate, and raise their child shape his personality and inculcate values in him. Family is most influential source in the individual's learning of norms and values. Society. After family, society also plays a major role in developing value system of an individual. Every child learn basic manners and discipline from the school. Interaction with the classmates, friends, and teachers in the schools and other institutions also inculcate important values in the child. Besides schools and colleges, other groups of society, such as religious groups, economic and political groups, to which an individual belongs to, also affect the value system of an individual. Another source of values is personal factors. Personal characteristics like intelligence, ability, appearance, and education level of a person determines his value system very strongly. For example, an intelligent and educated person will understand and learn the social and work related values relatively faster than the uneducated person. Culture. Cultural factors which influence value system of an individual include norms, beliefs, and other behavioral patterns which are preferred and acceptable by the society. The values which an individual learns from the culture are passed on from generation to generation. An individual belongs to a society, group, and an organization. Thus, he is a composite of many cultural elements. Whether an individual is cooperative, friendly, or helpful, this depends upon the culture to which he belongs. The degree to which an individual is willing to take risks, believes in saving money for future, cares for the loved ones, is also determined by his or her cultural background. Religion. Generally, individuals obtain strength and comforts from the religion which they follow. Religion is comprised of set of values and traditions which guide routine behavior and decision making of an individual. Religious values help people in determining what is good or what is bad. Next source of value is life experiences. Apart from the sources which we have mentioned earlier, a man learns the most from his own experiences and sometimes from the experiences of others. The values which an individual learns from own experiences of life are relatively long lasting and difficult to change. Role demands. Role demand refers to the behavior which is associated with the particular position or role profile in an organization. Every individual plays multiple roles in his life. He has to play the role of an employee in an organization, a role of a family member in the family, role of a friend in the social group, and so on. The problem occurs when there is a role conflict. In such case, individuals quickly learn the value system prevailing in the organization so that they may survive and progress in the same environment. Dear students, now we will understand the concept of values across culture. In the earlier discussion, we have already discussed that culture is the important source of determining individual values, which means that culture has a very important role to play in developing value system of an individual. In today's era, due to globalization, working with the people of different culture has become a very common practice. In all multinational organizations, you will find executives hailing from different cultural backgrounds. Values differ across the cultures. Therefore, it has become very important for the managers to understand the differences of values across the cultures so that they may be able to understand and predict behavior of employees from different cultures. A very popular framework, commonly known as Hofstede's framework, is used to assess and understand the variation of values across different cultures. Hofstede's framework has given 6 dimensions of culture to assess variations of values from one culture to another culture. These dimensions are power distance, individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, masculinity versus femininity, long term versus short term orientation, and indulgence versus restraint. So, now we will discuss the first dimension, which is power distance. Power distance is the degree to which people accept uneven distribution of power in the society and institutions. People with high power distance tend to accept unequal power distribution, and the people with the lower power distance relatively prefer equal distribution of power. Low power distance cultures adopt participative style of management, whereas high power distance cultures adopt autocratic style of management. The next dimension, individualism versus collectivism, reflects preference of people for individual goals or group goals. The concept of individualism refers to the degree to which people value individual goals over the group goals. Such people tend to behave individually rather than as a member of group and believe that individual rights are above all. In opposite to this, collectivism is the degree to which individuals give preference to group goals over individual goals. Collectivism represents a social framework where group members are expected to protect and care other members of the group. Masculinity versus femininity. Value of masculinity represents the degree to which the culture favors traditional masculine roles like achievement, control, and power. Such cultures do not give equality to men and women and usually fix separate roles for men and women. Masculine societies are generally male dominating societies, and in opposite to this, femininity value represents no or little demarcation between the roles of males and females in the societies. Such societies respect males and females equally. Uncertainty avoidance. This dimension shows the degree to which people in a country prefer structured and planned situations over unstructured and unplanned situations. This value reflects the tendency of people to tolerate uncertainty and ambiguity or avoid uncertainty and ambiguity. The countries which score high on uncertainty avoidance, there people tend to have increased level of apprehension for uncertainty and ambiguity. Such countries usually frame rules, regulations, and laws to avoid uncertainty. Such countries always prefer structured situations. In opposite to this, the countries that score low on uncertainty avoidance take more risks. They are not rules oriented and believe in change. The next dimension of Hofstede's framework is long term versus short term orientation. Long term orientation is a national value which emphasizes on future, savings, and preservance. Those countries which have long term orientation, they generally live and think more for future than for the present. And on the other hand, short term orientation emphasizes more on past and present. Next dimension is indulgence versus restraint. Indulgence is the degree to which people prefer to enjoy life, have fun, and fulfill natural desires, whereas restraint is the degree to which gratification of individuals' needs, desires, and behavior is governed by social norms largely. Now we will discuss applications of values in the organizational behavior. It has been already discussed that values influence behavior of an individual. Further, influence of values on the behavior of an individual in an organizational setting can be specifically understood from the key points. The first key point is an individual's perception about the problems faced by him is influenced by his value system. As a result, the decisions taken by him to solve the problems also reflects his values. Values also affect interpersonal relationships in the organization. The way employees look at each other, they cooperate with each other, and compete with each other, that depends upon their values. Values guide an individual about what is ethical and what is unethical. Therefore, the degree to which an employee remains ethical or involved in the unethical practices at workplace depends upon his value system. The extent to which an individual cope up with the organization's pressures and contribute in the achievement of organization's goals is determined by his value system. The employees stay in the organizations for a longer period of time if their values match with the organizational values, and they may leave the organization if their values do not match with the organizational values. So students, let us now summarize what we have learned. Values are long-lasting and stable beliefs about what is good or what is bad. In order to understand organizational behavior, it is very important to study values first, because values of an individual strongly influence his attitudes, perceptions, needs, motives at workplace. Values are very powerful source of influencing human behavior. Effective managers have to study the value system underlying the behavior of employees, because only then they will be able to understand why people behave in a particular fashion sometimes. Values can be described as the basic convictions that guide an individual that a particular mode of conduct or final outcome is personally or socially acceptable or not. Values contain an element of judgment, which influences an individual's understanding about what is good or what is bad, what is desirable or undesirable. Values are inherited as well as learned through the process of socialization. Thank you.